Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our webinar today, Getting Instructors into the Game, Strategies to Support AI Literacy and Adoption. And with this title and with the theme today, we're going to play a little bit off of it's football season. As we go through the sections, the transitions today, you'll see that theme at times, but obviously you'll be able to step away from the session today and not have to hold that theme going forward, and our resources don't have that theme baked into them. But we're just playing with that theme a little bit for our hour today, just to have that. So let me go into our session overview. We'll do a quick poll because we want to get a sense of your institutional scenarios. We'll talk about AI adoption data highlights very briefly, just to give people the latest context if you haven't seen some of those data. We'll talk about some of the literacy and adoption efforts from our panelists today, and also feel free to share in the chat any of yours, and I'll have a few others that I'll mention as well. And then talking about building community and momentum, how that can be done strategically, intentionally. What are some steps that can be taken? What are some traditional things, and what are some more innovative and creative things that can be done deeper through the institution? We always want you to engage throughout our session. So again, keep that chat active. And we also have a couple ways where we'll be engaging you, polling and otherwise. And as always, we like to provide takeaway resources. Some of these resources will be things that we have found useful from our panel, from others, and also things that we've created at Alchemy to share out with you as well. So I want to introduce today's speakers. I'm delighted, and this is one of the things I was reflecting on this week is just such a great part of my job is I get to continually work with people and find great people and collaborate with people like I have today, Casandra and DJ. And I'm just so blessed to do that as part of my work. And it's been something that I've always enjoyed, being part of the Cal State system and having a large network, and now what I do with Alchemy. Speaking of that, I'm Vice President for Educational Innovations at Alchemy, a role I've been in for a little over 4 years, and before that, 25 years in higher ed in the Cal State system. I'll first introduce Casandra, who I've gotten to know more recently. I know Casandra has been on some of our webinars, and I also got to meet her through a webinar I did for the CUNY system. And Casandra, in her own right, is a lecturer of philosophy at York College, which is part of CUNY. She's also a team lead for education and AI in education, and is part of this Building Bridges of Knowledge project that's just has been funded related to AI. Casandra, anything to add about your role and why you're here today?
Well, just great to be here. Great to see everybody. I've seen some familiar names along the way, speaking of collaboration. And I've been facilitating a lot of workshops and thinking very much about this question of today of how to get faculty into the game. So I look forward to sharing strategies.
Great, thank you, Casandra. And then as far as DJ, I've known DJ for maybe 2 years now, and pre-AI, but also certainly with AI being in the reality of faculty development, and DJ's role as the Center for Teaching and Learning co-director at San Diego State. He's also a professor of theater, a longtime educator, and you can see by his shirt, very much dedicated to that teaching mission and very proud of that. So I've had great conversations with DJ and what he's been doing, and what others around him have been doing in different capacities at San Diego State. So DJ?
Thanks very much for that warm welcome, Brett. It's a pleasure to be joining an Alchemy webinar. And as Brett said, I've been a longtime listener, first time participant. At my university, I've been talking about generative AI for almost 2 years now, but it's really this semester that I've been leaning into talking about AI literacy as a shared learning outcome and responsibility for all faculty to take up. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Great, thank you, DJ. All right, let's jump in. So we always like to do a very brief framing about how we view AI, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Alchemy, and I know this overlaps with DJ and Casandra, but I don't want to speak exactly for them. You'll hear from them throughout today. But AI being that creative companion, that you are still the expert. You're still in charge of what happens with AI, how you use it, ideally in an effective and ethical way, and that the output is such. And so that is a great, empowering creative companion that can enable you to be even stronger in the work that you do, be more efficient in the work that you do. But again, you're the one in control. So think of it however you like, but we term it creative companion, just to always put you at the center. So let's do a quick stadium check. Here's our first little football theme transition slide. So let's gauge the crowd. Who's with us today and what's on your mind related to the topic? So we'll get this first poll question up in a second, but I want you to kind of look at these carefully as far as the level of instructional AI integration at your institution. So no integration means that it's just sort of happening by chance. You've got some individuals that are doing things, but not really a coordinated collective effort at the institutional level or across the institution. And then from there to minimal, moderate, and high integration, you can view those and respond as you will. And I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of narration as we see the results coming in. We're nearing the halfway response rate, and we will share this out and we will embed it in the slides as we share those out with you in case that's useful for conversations, because we've got a respectable N here of 313 people, about 3/4 responding. And we're seeing, let's see, about, well, I'll narrate when we do the share results. Let me wait one more second. I see us leveling off and hitting about 80%. So let's go ahead and post the results. And let's take a brief look at those. So we've got about 1/4 saying no integration, minimal to none, or just sort of by chance or random. About half are at that minimal stage. And then we go back to almost 1/4 at the moderate and very, very little, 3% at the high integration, which is not too surprising. You know, in some ways it feels like AI has been around a while. It's been a long grind, but it's still less than 2 years since it's really come out to us in general. So this is where we would say, okay, most of us are at the minimal to moderate, maybe a 2.5 average. I'll run the numbers after the session, but that's where we'd be today across the group. Let's go on to the next question. We just have one more question here. Okay, great. Now let's look at biggest barriers. This is a poll question where you can select multiple in your responses. So what's the biggest challenge or challenges related to AI adoption for instruction? And as you see, there's an other, because there could have been a very, very long list here. We tried to pick maybe some of the most common things, but if other things come to mind, you can select number 5, and then feel free to add that into the chat just so we can get a little bit of context across the group. If you don't feel like adding it in the chat because it's not anonymous, that's understandable. Okay, so we're getting a lot of responses across these. Our leader, so to speak, is academic integrity, that concern. Okay, and that's centering around appropriate use, cheating, plagiarism, the integrity of the assignments, the integrity of the learning still taking place. Followed by instructor hesitation, so uncertain about how AI may play a role in teaching or in learning, or there may be reluctance to adopting new technologies, which can always be the case, and we want to be sensitive to that. That's natural. Okay, and then our lowest, but still about half, are saying unclear instructional value. Okay, so we'll carry some of those things forward with us, of course, into the conversation today and beyond as we look at this. So we're sharing out the results now so you can take a glance. And our highest, again, is academic integrity. And academic integrity is very complex, obviously, and academic integrity was sort of the first thing to flare up. And there is definitely strong value there that we can lean into and try and provide clearer meaning around. And that relates, of course, to AI literacy, which we'll talk about today. And today, we'll talk about AI literacy, but we're not going to do a very deep dive into AI literacy itself. It's AI literacy as part of the game plan and how to move that forward. We are going to be talking in the very near future very deeply about AI literacy, and I'll talk about that a little bit later today. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop sharing the results here and move forward. And I want to bring up the chat. I know a lot's been happening in there. I don't mean to be remiss, but for now, I'm going to move forward, and then I'll get a chance to look at chat as I turn it over. Okay. So let me move on. We already got that slide, and let's go into setting the game plan for AI literacy. So one other thing I did was I pulled in some quotes, because there are actually some great historical quotes that related to the different sections of today. And this first one, it's not the will to win that matters. Everyone has that. It's the will to prepare to win that matters. And there's a lot of preparation that takes place to be AI literate and to be able to move forward intentionally and skillfully in using it appropriately. I do want to mention that as I went through different quotes and I found these quote sources, the different coaches, I made sure that I picked those that were as upstanding as possible as far as character and moral and ethical qualities. So I tried to do my diligence there and pick the least scandalous folks out there as far as I could tell, because there are certainly some of those. No names being mentioned. Okay. So let's talk about some faculty patterns with AI use. And this is data from spring 2024, published over the summer. I've shown these briefly before in a session or two, but I think it's good to just kind of do a check-in for those that haven't seen them. And we'll provide you the link to the resource as well if you wanted to go through that article. So 40% of faculty saying they're familiar with AI, which is a pretty broad statement. What is being familiar? Knowing about it, knowing that it exists, knowing its general function and how it might impact things in your role or students or administration. Only 18% said they understand teaching implications of AI. So that specific use case of how you might bring AI into the teaching role, that was very minimal. And then 42% saying they don't allow any use. So if you're not understanding how it applies, you're going to tend to ban that. So that's why AI literacy is so important, so that you're better informed, better skilled ideally, and then able to know how it can be used ethically and productively with your students and with your assignments. Sometimes yes, and sometimes no, and we'll talk about different ways that you can set those levels. Okay. So we've got the link in there for you. Awesome. So I know some people have seen that. Let's look at the other side of the coin. What is the stance of students and employers? We get kind of almost the opposite, interestingly. Different studies, but the data are almost opposite on this other side of the coin. So 70% of students believing basic Gen AI training should be integrated into courses. They're not saying just turn it over to us so we can just go through hoops more quickly and cheat our way through. This is something they see as valuable related to their workplace skills, and employers are echoing that, saying that they believe grads should have those skills. And most of them are more likely to interview and hire those with some AI experience. They're seeing the value for that. So this gets us to think, okay, here might be my stance in my role, what I'm thinking, but how can I think about students and their eventual workplace experiences, and how can I better align to that as I'm able to, within reason. I'm going to turn it over to Casandra for a moment.
So as we saw, many students and employers are asking for more AI preparation, but faculty are still reluctant. I was seeing in the chat so many concerns, very important concerns to hear about and listen to. But what about the benefits? How do we emphasize the benefits? And do you have faculty, and tell me if this sounds familiar in the chat, just waiting to write it out, maybe think it will pass and just go on to the next thing? So it helps to have as many benefits as possible, explaining these to faculty, bringing them up. And here are some of the big ones. So one, we have boosting productivity. Think of AI like a star quarterback, helping you accomplish more, the tasks that faculty are already doing, but automating them. Two, protecting student learning. And I know this might be an unusual way to phrase it. So protecting from what? Protecting from setbacks by offering support, tutoring, and personalized help. Third, staying competitive. To stay in the game, adopting AI ensures your teaching remains relevant and impactful, like peak form in a football season. And the next one, I think, especially not talked about very much, because we hear a lot about division, a lot about different approaches, concerns. but what if AI can help with building teamwork, collaborating, open dialogue, sharing different strategies, and that's very valuable. And the final one, again, preparing for the future, right? Preparing teachers for the future and preparing students for the future. And full disclosure, I threw the ball around a bit with ChatGPT in thinking through these benefits and helping generate the analogies. So sample use case as a creative partner.
Great, thanks, Cassandra. And I see Justin saying, I'm not sure I agree with AI as a star quarterback. And I would say that that's, you know, a very rare, seasoned veteran quarterback with whom there's this special relationship between the coach and the quarterback where they're always on the same page, but occasionally the quarterback just knows a little bit more of what's happening and can act in the moment and sort of you know, do an audible and come up with something great. And so can be creative and do something that maybe the coach was a little hesitant to, can kind of show, okay, here's what could have happened. It's not going to be perfect every time, but that unique, and I won't name any names, but I'm thinking of a couple that have had that great leadership role that they've been able to play on the field. Okay, so I got to catch up on some great things in the chat. Thank you for that so much. And you know, equity and access obviously is something that we have to pay attention to as we think about this, because some students will have more access and experience with the technology and be able to run with it. Some will have models that they're able to pay for, no problem, and have the better output. So yeah, we're definitely paying attention to that. DJ.
Thanks, Brett.
Let's talk about AI literacy. Let me give it a little bit of a transition. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's perfect. Thank you. As I mentioned in my introduction, I've been talking a lot with my faculty about AI literacy this semester, not only as something of value for our students, but also as an invitation to my faculty to more actively engage. And I know you can't read this particular graphic at this level of magnification, but I do want to share that this is a really valuable tool that's been provided by the Modern Language Association and the 4 Cs, the Conference on College Composition and Communication, 2 professional organizations that provide support to faculty on our campuses who, among other things, teach a lot of writing. So this student guide to AI literacy is kind of TLDR for the whole subject, and I've been sharing it with a lot of my faculty, especially those who are feeling new to the subject. Could we go to the next slide, please? Because 4 Cs and MLA have provided some really succinct definitions of just exactly what is AI literacy, and I think it's still a new concept for many of our colleagues, so it's worth reiterating. Succinctly, ethical and effective use of generative AI technologies is the definition that they provide, at least the top line definition in this particular handout. They go on to describe at some length what AI literacy looks like. A skilled and thoughtful user of AI tools knows when and how to use them, and importantly, when not to use them. So I've been sharing AI literacy with my faculty as part of a whole program of helping them upskill to meet the moment. But also where faculty engagement comes in is I've been offering AI literacy as a new learning outcome that faculty can take up across all disciplines. And for faculty who are really engaged in the goal of teaching and learning, setting AI literacy as a challenge, even a responsibility, is, I'm seeing, moving some faculty who have been on the sidelines to getting into the game. And can we go to the next slide, please?
Yeah.
Thanks. So just a moment. Yeah, thanks. So Brett and I have pulled some of the highlights from that MLA 4C document, which breaks down various learning outcomes within the general field of AI literacy. And the 3 that I really want to talk about today are have a basic understanding of how these technologies work, for starters. Just as it was once useful to know how a typewriter worked so that you could troubleshoot when the keys jammed, it's useful to know, at least on a conceptual level, how generative AI functions. Most books, like the Bowen and Watson title, or trainings, including my own university's micro-credential, include some basics on Gen AI design and function. I also want to talk about know how to prompt Gen AI to produce useful outputs. This is really what a lot of employers are looking for in our students post-graduation, but long before they graduate, knowing how to interact with the tools, how to iteratively improve the outputs is really going to be useful for our students, for those faculty who are actively assigning these tools in the classroom. And realistically, as Zach Justice has observed, the job title prompt engineer may not even exist 5 years from now, given how the natural language interactions are developing. But it does seem like prompting generative AI tools is something that will be useful now and will remain useful for a long time to come. And then the last one of these headlines from the AI literacy handout that I want to talk about is evaluate the relevance, usefulness, and accuracy of Gen AI outputs. The astute analysis of AI output and even the metacognitive reflection on the tools themselves is a critical part of AI literacy. And this is where the traditional mission of higher ed, refining the critical and creative thinking skills of our students, remains very much relevant. Refining AI tools, evaluating use cases, and thinking carefully about the results of Gen AI collaboration may well be at the heart of AI literacy. Back to you, Brett.
Great, thank you, DJ. And I want to acknowledge some side notes in the chat. As some of you pointed out, EDUCAUSE came out with a new article and framework just as of Thursday. And so we're definitely really aware of that. And we know that we're doing a deeper dive into AI literacy as a focused session in the very near future. And that's on our minds as we think about that next session. So stay tuned for more on that. And then I saw with all the links going into chat, a good strategy for some of you might be to right-click and copy it and then put it into a different browser tab so you're not disturbing Zoom. I saw there may be some conflict, and I think people are figuring that out for themselves, so I'll move on. Great, so thank you. That is a great, concise resource. We've got the link for you as far as the 4Cs MLA reference, and then again, stay tuned for more related to AI literacy. Okay, so now thinking about coaching the team and supporting faculty experimentation. So how can you try to collectively move things forward? So more and more people are thinking about it, knowing what to do, and experimenting and feeling they have a plan or they feel safe to experiment a little bit. So Bum Phillips, this is going back a ways, Houston Oilers. So if you fail all the time, but you fail all the time, but you aren't a failure until you start blaming someone else. So thinking about how failing is not necessarily a bad thing. It's what you do with that failure. It's how you frame it. It's whether or not you own it and then move forward from it. So we'll be talking about that as a strategy. I'll turn it over to Casandra for a moment.
Yes, so it's easy to blame, and it's easy to blame AI and point the finger at it. And this really ties into some of what I wanted to share from my article from last year. You tell me if this sounds familiar in the chat. We've seen a lot of media coverage starting late 2022, right, already and to this day, on AI as a crisis and portraying educators as powerless, helpless, subjected to, say, a cruel Turing test where they're stuck trying to identify, is it human written, is it AI written? They don't know how to use the tools. They don't know what's coming in the future. So how do we shift this narrative? And in what I've seen with faculty members and workshops, it's really about faculty's feelings, acknowledging that, but then moving forward and using this as a growth opportunity. One of my quotes there, ChatGPT does not threaten education in general, but only current forms of education. So how can we use this to talk about problems that were already there, but maybe we weren't talking about them enough, right? And ChatGPT or any AI tool is shedding the light on them. How do we empower educators? How do we lift them up and recognize that there are things they know, recognize their discipline expertises? Those are all going to be important in developing their own tools and deciding how to use these tools in their own classrooms. And how do we facilitate spaces where all the voices I've heard? So I've seen many workshops and discussions where faculty are asking, well, what about AI detection tools? So even if I have a feeling about them and I'm not in favor of them for many reasons, and we won't go into that now, we want to acknowledge that concern. We want to acknowledge that need and not shut them out, right? Bring in all the approaches, bring in all the perspectives, and that's how we're going to move forward, collaborating, being inclusive. And I add bringing in the students too, right? Asking for feedback. And that ties into the initiative I'll share about in the next slide. Brett, this is something we've been working on at CUNY as of this year. We were very lucky to have it, our Innovative Teaching Academy, obtain funding for this initiative. So they proposed it, they organized it. And then the structure that they set up for us is really very faculty driven. And as I was saying, it's bringing up that expertise that faculty have in the different disciplines. So to share a bit about the structure, it's like a flat hierarchy. It's not top down. So we have the organizers, we have project coordinators, and then we have leads for 5 different disciplines, many campuses covered. As you might know, it's a very big university, so it's across 16 campuses, 30 fellows. And we've really been emphasizing all through our work in the spring and summer, joyful collaboration, giving feedback, being creative, letting faculty lead the way to how they want to do it. So there's no strong rules of how these open educational resources should be. And they've really varied so much what faculty have been creating. And we've been thinking a lot about the needs of our students, as I know all of you have been, what student population we have, especially worried about accessibility, equity, that disadvantaged students are not disadvantaged any more than they are, bringing them forward, reducing that AI equity gap. And ultimately the goals, and similar to what DJ describes, are preparing students to navigate AI in an ethical, effective, and responsible way, not just in their courses, but beyond in the workplace. And the overall process to finish out, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of developing, a lot of communicating together about what we were each working on, celebrating. We had a big celebration early in the fall semester. Very happy, just this is where we're at and this is where we're going. And now we're implementing it. And I know there were some asking in the chat about evidence and feedback. So we're doing it this semester, gathering that feedback, gathering more feedback from faculty as well, and then revising. And we're going to be sharing it widely in CUNY and beyond CUNY as well, after we go through that whole process.
Right. Love it, Casandra, and congratulations and all the best going forward. And the link that we've shared with you is again to the press release, because this is such a new effort. So it'll just give you some framing context. And what stands out to me on this slide, I have to say, is that joyful collaboration. To me, injecting that word is just so powerful. It depressurizes things and it helps people to get this effort, take this effort and hook it back into why they became educators and why they do what they do. And hopefully there's that joy that's present in going through this. So I just want to acknowledge that a little addition to me just makes all the difference in that aspect. So I have to say the chat is interesting. So many great contextual contributions, which we love, and the little technical things about hyperlinks. And hopefully they're working for people. We don't lock down our chat. It is an important part of the community, you all, and what you share and what we're trying to provide you. But a reminder, you'll get the slides, you'll get the recording, and you'll get also an edited version of the chat with all of the resources that have been shared amongst yourselves. So Don't worry about screen captures unless you really want to do that in the moment now. We will get things to you very soon, very soon. Okay, DJ?
Thanks. So on our campus, we've developed a number of resources and programs that are trying to meet all our faculty. There's obviously some faculty who are really enthusiastic early adopters of generative AI. There's a lot of faculty who are gradually engaging at more modest levels. And there's still those faculty who remain kind of queasy about generative AI, who we're trying to get off the sidelines. One tool developed by colleagues on my campus is a micro-credential academic applications of generative AI. And we found this really useful. I've got a badge from completing the micro-credential, and it works faculty through a really thorough introduction to how AI works, a really substantial discussion of ethics, including ecological impact of generative AI use at a really fundamental mechanical, technological level. And then it moves into AI specifically in the classroom. So I find it really interesting and productive. And next slide, please. My Center for Teaching and Learning strongly supports, oh, not the video, unless you want to run the video.
Nope.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so my Center for Teaching and Learning strongly encourages all our faculty to participate in the micro-credential. We've had a really strong show of faculty who have enrolled in the micro-credential. We've had a smaller number of faculty who have completed it to the point where they earn the badge, which is not an insignificant amount of time. And we've had a number of faculty who have gone through and more or less audited the course, gotten the information without doing any of the practice sessions or getting feedback. So it's continuing to be a valuable resource, and it is accessible off our campus as well. In order to try to get more faculty into the game, I've also been working on a podcast series. This is specifically as part of our Center for Teaching and Learning. Faculty Futures Lab is starting its 5th season now, but the 4th season was all about generative AI, and a frequent participant in these webinars, Zach Justice, was one of our guests as well. And so we've worked through a number of subjects, including introducing AI in the classroom more than a year ago, talking about ethics, talking about the pros and cons at the level of university policy. So there's a number of topics here, and we also try to have a little bit of fun as well. So there'll be a link to Faculty Futures Lab when you get the slides, and feel free to check out season 4. It's all about generative AI. And really, it's something that people who are reluctant, still on the sidelines, can listen to and start thinking about getting in the Gen AI headspace while they're going for a walk, driving to work, and just trying to find ways to reduce barriers for the folks who are still reluctant about engaging with these tools, because we're just trying to get as many people as possible to adapt to the changing landscape of higher ed.
Right, and that's important. Thanks, TJ. Is different formats of communicating and having people be able to engage around the topic. You know, there's a scripted curriculum for the micro-credential. There's complementary conversations taking place. I've seen some great comments about the micro-credential, and also somebody said it's for San Diego State faculty. It's also been provided for the Cal State system as well, which is great. And who knows, maybe they'll eventually provide it as far as Canvas Commons. I don't know. It's not DJ's decision to make, but who knows, maybe it'll come out there and be released in Canvas Commons in the future.
You're right. I know that they're interested in expanding the circle.
Right. Yeah. San Diego State's always good about that. But you want to do it in stages. You want to serve your own, test it out, refine, and then expand and do it well. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is an effort related to helping with AI literacy, and then also now bringing some AI literacy into how you're teaching or how your assignments are designed. And so you can more effectively help students to know what AI use is most appropriate or most effective, what's desired by your design for these assignments. And there's been talk about policies. It's great to have an institutional policy with AI included. It's great to have a course policy. But that doesn't go very far as enabling students to know exactly what to do and when and how. And so what we've done is we've designed a resource. And yeah, this is based on, let's see, no, I'm seeing a different reference here. Ignore the chat for a second. Let me just go into this collection for those that haven't seen it, and we'll give you the link to this in a bit. Is I've developed about 25 to 30 of these AI and assessment examples, and this is based on the AI assessment scale by Perkins et al. Originally 2023, they revised it in August of this year, so 2024. And I created different assignment examples by different disciplines, assignment types, and different course levels across these AI assessment levels. And so we've got, again, 25 to 30 of these. And I'll just show you one at about the mid-level very briefly, just so you get a sense of what it looks like, and then we'll go back to the main topic again. So let's look at, let's say it's marketing campaign. This is level 4, which is considered full AI. So you're allowing students to use AI extensively, but you're holding them accountable. You're talking about it even at the level of the assignment overview and that description. You're talking about, hey, how AI is part of what they're doing with the assignment. It's sprinkled into the objectives specifically. And then the instructions and what they do with this assignment, you have the instructions for them and where AI can play a role and how. And so it's this iterative process that develops through their assignment. And then they submit a reflection and documentation about how they used AI along with their final product. So these examples are designed to help instructors think about how it goes from just policy to now into specific assignments, because some assignments you might want full AI, some assignments you may want just the student and their own reflections. So this helps you to toggle between those. Okay, and then down to evaluation criteria, support resources, which is important for students to know what support resources they have to help them out. And then academic integrity statement. So that's just a quick snapshot of the different things that we've been doing with the assignment level to help with AI literacy at that stage. So let me go back into slideshow here. Okay. And again, we'll share that out with you very soon here. So let's go into a little bit of engagement with you. Thank you for everything you've done in the chat. I know that I will be gleaning that later, and I know the community of the close to 400 of you has so much expertise to share across the group, and I'm glad you're doing that in the chat with each other. So let's do another activity here, and we'll get the link into, there it goes. If you follow me to the Padlet, let's try and document some of your thoughts here. And ideally, you would just focus on 1A and 1B. We'll get to the other ones in just a bit. But what is one strategy you've used to help build or help with your own confidence or help someone build confidence with AI? What's been one strategy that you've used? And then an MVP moment. What's one win you've seen or can envision in the near term? Okay, and I'll pause. I see people populating in the Padlet, and it takes time, of course, to get in there and respond. And then we'll look at this. And with the Padlet, I'll wait until the end and I'll talk about what we do with the Padlet. So training faculty on the benefits of how it helps with daily tasks. Yeah, if they can see the value, because this is an add-on for faculty, and it's something we wanted to make sure we mentioned at multiple points, is we understand that there's effort involved in this uptake. It's significant. I went through my own learning curve, went through my own period of just feeling overwhelmed by all the information that was coming so rapidly, and just trying to consume that, process that, and find meaning, and then feeling like, okay, my feet are on the ground and now I can keep up and I can function and I can move forward effectively. It takes a while to get to that point. So we have to be sensitive to that for sure. Okay, repeated practice and experimenting, demystifying it, yes, because of the things that people will hear in the media or these ill-informed comments that they'll hear at times. So how can you really inform them and show them? Let's see, scrolling for some others, play with AI, and I always love to see the term play. When can something be about play and that joyfulness that we mentioned earlier? Share that you've used it with positive results. I see a dissertation, other research that people have been doing, which is great. Book club, yeah, and we'll have a mention of another book club here coming up in a minute. Feel free to share in a comment there. If you've done a book club, feel free to add a comment there saying which book you featured, either in the Padlet at that point or in the chat. Either way, up to you. MVP moments real quick here. Let's see. Faculty refining and giving greater attention to their assessments rather than defaulting to an essay. Did AI do a good thing by causing that? Possibly. I mean, that's something just to kind of think about. Was that already kind of necessary and AI triggered that? That's conversations I've certainly heard is this has caused us to think differently about some of the traditional things, if you will, and think of more alternative assessments, formative assessments, authentic assessments. A market analysis related to their program. I love that. So how does it map into the reality of the market? Specific examples, and it could be in the instructor's workflow. How can AI enable what they're doing and make them more productive, more efficient? So how can you sprinkle that in as well? And also, you know, I'll talk about this as I share an actual game plan document with you toward the end. How can you bring in others besides just faculty to share across units? So staff, administration, student services, university services, all of that. Building your own GPT. So yeah, attend the session that Casandra is going to be part of tomorrow, focused on bots in education. And I've heard people say that bots don't, you know, change things or cause any impact, positive impact on learning. It depends on the bot. It depends on the implementation. It's early. You need to be careful what you read and what you create as a conclusion for yourself. So, you know, kind of keep an open mind a little bit. Notebook LM is pretty impressive. Some people have said, oh, it's trivial. It creates these podcasts. It does a lot of other things. And turning an article into a podcast can be a very useful thing depending on the purpose of the article, because it creates another option for consumption and engagement for the student. Think of universal design for learning. If it's about the content itself and not about the research methods, then the podcast can be a good thing. Okay, I see people have moved on to the third and fourth columns. I'm not going to go there yet because we'll come back just in case others haven't. Thank you. What I want to do is acknowledge that with the Padlet, we will leave this available because anytime there are other ideas that you can pick up on, you can be able to go back here. I'll also be doing a Padlet analysis. I do this a couple different ways. I'll export the CSV, have ChatGPT analyze the responses, give it a summary. I'll put that into a slide. I also found even easier if I have it exported as a picture, it'll analyze the picture just as effectively as the CSV. So just FYI, if anybody's wanting to do that or doing that already, that's just something I found to be useful. Okay, thank you for that. Let's move down to the final stretch in our last 10 to 15 minutes here. So building that teamwork and celebrating wins, getting to that stage is always the exciting part. You've done the work, the diligence is there. Now, how do you build from that? So simple quote here, you never lose, you either win or learn. So how do we think about those failures that were mentioned earlier being more about learning opportunities? So having that mindset, I think that is important as a mindset to have. I'll have DJ and Casandra share a little bit more about some of their efforts.
Oh, great. Thanks. Hi. So yes, thanks, Brett. Sorry, I was looking at some of these and not immediately recognizing them. We've had some really exciting opportunities to build community on our campus. We've had a reading circle on our campus related to the Bowen and Watson Teaching with AI book. And I bet on this webinar, there's quite a few people who have done the same. We are holding our third campus-wide AI in higher education event. Our colleague, Zach Justice, attended last year, and we've invited Jose Bowen, who will be coming to our campus in February as part of this year's event. more opportunities for faculty to gather in real space and talk about generative AI. Additionally, been building a community with that podcast, whether it's folks who've already gone down the Gen AI rabbit hole, stopping me on campus to say thanks for that latest podcast, or people who are rather more tentatively just starting to engage. And we've also recently launched a small but exciting working group of faculty who are doing serious scholarly research from a humanities perspective on generative AI.
Love it.
Those are some of the things I want to share.
Fascinating. I can't wait to hear more. And also, I had an upcoming book club on Bowen and Watson as well. So I'm part of that crew and have been enjoying the book. Other things that we've been doing at CUNY, we have a teaching and learning conference upcoming in the spring. And it's only the second year that it's a new conference that celebrates indeed teaching and learning and what goes on in the classroom. And like we talked about, we're very lucky to have a very joyful approach in building bridges of knowledge, lifting up all the faculty. So every fellow is invited. We have a segment reserved already. It's not a competitive thing. Everybody's in, and we'll be sharing the process. We've also applied to some other conferences to share our work. And outside of my campus and the university, I've been lucky to be a part of AI in Education, which is an international group. I saw some from AI in Education in the chat. And within that group, there are these affinity groups, and I've been organizing custom bots GPTs. It started as just an open conversation and one collaborative document where we were all sharing our notes. What have you been experimenting with? What have you been playing around with? And then I learned that faculty really want to see examples and they really want to be taken step by step. So every month now we have 1 or 2 presenters taking us through the bots they created, sharing their screen, showing the training, and one or two is really covers the whole time. So and if anyone's interested, you're all welcome. The next one is tomorrow, and I share the chat, the link in the chat.
Great, thank you. And clarification on that link, one of the links that went to you from Alchemy events is a link if you were to want to join that AI in Education group. It's a Google group. The other link should be to the showcase specifically, and I'm looking for that link. Yes, I see that from Casandra here. And were there issues with that link? So Casandra, you might look at the chat since you posted that link to see if there's any clarification while I go forward.
Okay, I sent one more there.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, and the other thing is I just happened to come across the Northeastern University showcase or gallery that they have where they're trying to show what faculty are doing with adopting AI within their courses. And so you could look at the learning activities that they have, I think somewhere around 18 or 19, and that's just at latest check. You could scroll down and see how Michelle Zaff, for example, is incorporating generative AI with her new technology to fuel student job searches approach. And so that would show you different than what I showed with my AI assignments, but they do have a way that they've structured it so that they're sharing with you how they've incorporated AI, how that's used in the assignment, and then what examples are like as far as the outcomes or output. And then they have a PDF that you can download with the whole resource for you. So that's just something to share. And yes, that's in the chat for you as well. So just more thought there, the more that you can have a central space that really uplifts efforts of faculty and others on campus and gives tangible examples, then people will get to start seeing, oh, okay, this is how I might apply it because I see similar use cases with this person or this discipline. And then they start to kind of feel it and believe it a little bit more, and they're getting more comfortable. Okay. Good question from, I go over to Casandra in the chat, if there's a subgroup, and you can answer in the chat a subgroup or not on related to engineering. Okay.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Maybe
So
in the future.
maybe you have somebody volunteering to lead a subgroup, an affinity group. So you can always reach out to Casandra if that's the case. Let's go back to the Padlet because I just want to kind of round out that other side. And of course, naturally people will kind of spill over into those other columns, even if you say they're for later, and that's fine. That's great. Maybe some eagerness to share, which is a great thing. So those third and fourth columns. So what collaborative opportunities are possible or exist at your institution? And then share an actionable step you can now take. So with the dialogue today, is there now an actionable step you're thinking about taking? You've got an example, you've got some information that's been shared, and you can build from that. Okay, so I will do a scroll through. I'm going to be mindful of time that we're wrapping up here in a moment. So I'll probably just spend about 30 seconds or so. I don't want to not acknowledge all the great contributions here, but there just isn't time. And that's the great thing about Padlet. It's going to stay with us. I see showcasing the Center for Excellence in Teaching. Pretty much every campus has some form of that. That's great, but it shouldn't be where everything has to happen. And it should hopefully have higher level leadership that's really enabling that center to not just add this on as something more to do, but is making sure that it's a priority that's really supported, significantly supported. So thank you, Sacramento State, for sharing their resource. More faculty examples, book study. So we can, yes, so there's the Teaching with AI book by Bowen and Watson. And I know DJ and Casandra have had experience with book circles related to that book. And again, with Jose Bowen coming to San Diego State early next year. Communities of practice, those are great. Absolutely. And always capturing what they accomplish. If you can fold in scholarship of teaching and learning in some of those community of practice efforts, that's great, because if you can have faculty adopt it, do great things, or do things and learn from it, and then do research based on that and publish about it, then you've got scholarship folded into the process, and you've got an additional outcome, and that helps to bring stature to the effort and brings more data, more information. Okay, last column. Let's see. Campus talks, forming teams to collaborate and educate. Sharing this webinar and its resources, great. And again, we will collate all that for you to help. Notebook LM, definitely explore that. Is AI adoption or literacy the goal? Well, adoption that's informed by literacy is how I would say it, at least speaking for myself. They're connected. You want that literacy so that the adoption is done most effectively and most ethically. So it's not just go crazy, play with AI. It's really, how can you do it and do it well?
Brett, could I respond to that
Yeah,
briefly?
you did. Yeah.
I sometimes make a distinction between the verbs adopt and adapt. I know a lot of faculty, those on the sidelines or the slow to adopt, slow to engage faculty, who are queasy around the word adopt. But what I say is, and this is part of how I'm using AI literacy to encourage faculty engagement, whether you're reluctant to adopt AI tools in all your assignments, we all need to adapt for the changing landscape of higher education. And that includes faculty upskilling to learn about generative AI and including AI literacy as a learning outcome in our classes.
Love it. Thank you. Going back to those assignment examples, let's see, back here. Those are Creative Commons licensed for anybody to adopt or adapt. That's a good example, and that's what we like to hear. What I'm going to do is bounce from the Padlet to another resource that we're sharing with you today. And this is a brand new first draft and just an effort to try and create something that might help you move down your respective path. You're all at different stages, you have different roles you're playing, but how can something like this playbook help you down your path? And the word playbook is in the title, but don't worry, the rest of the document is devoid of any football reference or any other theme that we use today in our session. So you don't have to worry about that. So I'm just going to scroll through and give you a sense of what's here, and then you're going to get the link momentarily to this. So here's the table of contents. I looked at a 3-year plan. What might that look like for implementing AI and improving literacy and adoption at your campus? So there's the laying the foundation for AI literacy and mindset shift, because we haven't talked about that today. What's tricky about AI is it's not just learning a tool, it's shifting your mindset to think about how to use it differently. And then how to create more habits that have been shifted and more intentional use. That would be year 2. Year 1 would have a baseline survey. I've got an example of a baseline survey propped up in an appendix here I'll get to in a second. Year 3 is how you're going to scale and sustain behavioral change. So I'll do a quick scroll through because we're doing about perfect on time. We're going to be done top of the hour here. So here's year 1, just giving you an outline and possibility for what could be accomplished during that year. And again, I have a link to the survey I'll get to in a second. I have a link to a sample campaign message. Maybe you don't like the word campaign. That's fine. You can change that. It's meant in a positive way. End of year 1 report. What could a framework for a report look like? Because it's important. You don't just do the work, as you're able to say, here's what was accomplished. This is why we need to continue this. This is why we could use even more funding support or continued efforts. Year 2, here's what this could look like as far as your objectives. Some ideas for resources along the way that could be built out. And then year 3 scaling. I'm going to get down to some of the resources. So if you're looking at a year 1 survey, here's an appendix with a copy of a year 1 survey that you could adopt or adapt into Qualtrics or whatever platform you're using, just to help you get started if you haven't done something like this. Okay, and then the link to the playbook's coming momentarily. I see the chat going on. And then Appendix B, a sample year 1 campaign message that you can reword for your audience as needed. Shifting your mindset, unlocking new possibilities. Appendix C is looking at, okay, what could a year 1 report framework look like? These are the things that you would want to touch upon. That executive summary, what's there to highlight on the top. Some people might only read that deep. You want to make sure that you have the highlights up front for your execs, and then you have the deeper detail to back everything up. Document numbers, data points, make sure you show ROI as much as possible, that return on investment. Okay, and then the last thing is, wouldn't it be great if your provost or equivalent had an AI innovation incentive program for your campus? Here's a sample RFP, or call for participation, I should say, for such a program that you could prop up to your provost and say, could we do this? You're making their work and your work easier by having a draft model for this. So this is what I've done so far just in the last few days to try and tinker around with what a playbook could look like. I'll probably keep expanding this. I've got the date on the front page. So you've got today's date. If there's a newer version, it'll have that newer date on it. So anyway, I'm going to go back to the slides and close us out here. Just in concluding, we'll have our last quote, I promise. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. And that's our goal, is to be a little bit graceful with ourselves. Try as hard as we can, keep moving forward, but be graceful. Realize we can only do so much at any given time, and we will never do it perfect. Just keep chasing that excellence and keep doing the best that you can for yourself and your students and others that you serve. The playbook, we'll give you the link right now. We'll also give you the link to the assignments at the different levels of AI, if that's of interest. This will all be coming in the follow-up as well. So don't sweat if you don't get it here in the moment. And then we have all of our webinars and all of that if you're interested in looking at anything that's been archived. But what I want to do most of all is thank DJ and thank Casandra for their time that they've worked with me on this, and their presence here today, their expertise, and just the efforts they engage in every day. So thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you so much. And
Thanks,
thank you
everybody.
everyone in the chat.
And thank you everybody for all you've participated in this in the chat. I look forward to going through that. And again, we'll get an annotated version of the chat and all other resources out to people. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.